Once upon a time, there was a little girl who was dearly loved by her mother and even more by her grandmother. On her birthday, her grandmother gave her a red hood, and the little girl wore it everywhere she went. The neighbors began to call her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her mother baked a cake and asked Little Red Riding Hood to take it to her grandmother, along with a pot of butter, and to see how she was doing. Little Red Riding Hood set out to her grandmother's house, and along the way, she met a sly wolf. "Where are you going, Little Red Riding Hood?" asked the wolf. "I'm going to my grandmother's house to bring her a cake and some butter and to see how she's doing," replied Little Red Riding Hood. "And where does your grandmother live?" asked the wolf. "She lives in the first house on the edge of the village, just past the mill," replied Little Red Riding Hood. "Very well," said the wolf. "I also want to visit your grandmother. I'll take the short path, and you take the long one. Let's see who gets there first." The wolf ran as fast as he could along the short path, while Little Red Riding Hood walked leisurely along the long one, picking flowers along the way. When the wolf arrived at the grandmother's house, he knocked on the door. "Who is it?" asked the grandmother. "It's me, your granddaughter Little Red Riding Hood. I've brought you a cake and some butter," replied the wolf. The grandmother, who was sick in bed, thought that it was really her granddaughter, and she told the wolf to pull the string to open the door. The wolf did so, entered the house, and gobbled up the grandmother. After he ate the grandmother, the wolf put on her nightgown and got into her bed, waiting for Little Red Riding Hood to arrive. When Little Red Riding Hood knocked on the door, the wolf spoke in a gruff voice. "Who is it?" "It's me, your granddaughter," replied Little Red Riding Hood. "I've brought you a cake and some butter." "Pull the string to open the door," said the wolf, who was now disguised as the grandmother. When Little Red Riding Hood entered the house and saw the wolf, she was frightened but thought that her grandmother's eyes looked larger than usual. "Grandmother, why do you have such big hands?" asked Little Red Riding Hood. "So that I can hold you tight, my dear," replied the wolf. "Grandmother, why do you have such big ears?" asked Little Red Riding Hood. "So that I can hear you better, my dear," replied the wolf. "Grandmother, why do you have such big eyes?" asked Little Red Riding Hood. "So that I can see you better, my dear," replied the wolf. "Grandmother, why do you have such big teeth?" asked Little Red Riding Hood. "So that I can eat you better, my dear," roared the wolf, and he jumped out of bed and ate Little Red Riding Hood. Luckily, at that moment, some woodcutters passed by the house and heard the commotion. They rushed into the house and killed the wolf. Then they cut open his belly and released Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother, who were both unharmed. And from that day on, Little Red Riding Hood was never again fooled by a sly wolf.